Hello, can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just an ordinary guy who has extraordinary curiosity in life. I would like to ask all of you here, how many of your parents have taught you to distance yourself from strangers ever since you were a child? How many of you? It's quite an overwhelming majority of you. And how many of you actually follow their advice and could go against your parents' wishes? How many of you? So most of you are very, you do. It's good to see a few show hands here. Well, I did exactly the opposite as my parents did when I was very young. I am very curious in human relations. I'm very curious in why my parents asked me to not see strangers, because I thought they are just like one of us. You know, they have their visions, they have their goals, and I don't really believe in the notion that meeting every stranger is a very negative experience and they'll kidnap you just like my parents say, because I think that I was that smart when I was a kid. So what happened, what followed was that I did my own social experiment in which I've joined a few travel platforms that I hosted travelers who are previously strangers. Now many of them are my friends. And I also stay with these people when I'm traveling abroad. Number one, to cut costs. Number two, because I see it as a big social engineering project of mine on a personal capacity. So I would like to share with you a few events of my life that I find it particularly helpful in the over 300 people that I've met so far from these random experiences with strangers. So the first one was, I think, also the most memorable one by far, when I was traveling to Sydney, Australia for a few months. I happened to be in Sydney, Australia on what they would call a Mardi Gras Day, which in many other countries it means Fat Tuesday. It means celebrating the richness of food. So essentially a farmer thing. However, Mardi Gras in Australia means something very different. It actually is a celebration of Gay Pride Festival, where LGBTQ people proudly go to the streets and they celebrate their diversity, as they say in Australia, and the right to equal respect from society. So I happened to be in Australia at the time, and I thought, let's do something out of it instead of just participating normally or not going to stay at home according to my Australian auntie's advice. So what I did was that I organized a little free hugs event in which 10 people stated that they were going to show up, but eventually, of course, only a fair few people did, which I think was 3 people at the time. So this was me, standing in front of the Sydney Opera House with a free hug sign that reads, make hugs, make love, but not make wars. So at the time I thought, okay, this is getting awkward because I didn't realize that when you're actually doing it, you feel very nervous, and then you had a lot of people there who were very curious about you as well, and especially the location that we did was actually very, very close to the actual Gay Pride Festival. So there were a lot of gay people there, LGBT people there wondering, like, hey, if I'm one of them, they were approaching me and like, hey, you want a hug from me? I was like, oh, yeah, sure, why not? Because I already holding the sign, so it'd be hypocritical for me to say no. And then some of them actually hugged me quite a bit longer than I expected, I must say. But it doesn't matter. It was just a hug, and then I was joined later by a friend from This Is Me, asking for hugs in front of Sydney Opera House, in front of a bridge, Darling Harbour. And most of the people, of course, initially they rejected me. And you get around 2 hugs out of 10 people that you've shown the signs to, they walk past you, which was pretty interesting as well to see their facial reactions before they decided for or against it. It was funny to see that, they were about to hug me, but actually they decided against it at the end. So it made me wonder, what can I do to make them say yes to this complete stranger in that very situation? And I was also joined by a friend from Jordan. His name is Muhammad, I believe. And another friend from Finland, I think her name is Ninja, but actually it's read as Ninja as we write in English. So we had a pretty small group, lively, and then we did what we could to get a lot of hugs. And until it was pretty interesting from very start, but what really changed the dynamic of that day was that when we met, actually, we bumped into a group of LGBTQ people parading and crossing our paths. So they actually come to us and they asked, "Hey, are you guys like actually part of us?" I was like, "No, we were just here because we didn't know that Mardi Gras actually meant that, so we were just trying to do some free hugs experience." Previously, I've done that in Finland and also in Laos before. So this is my third continent doing that. I was telling them. And they're like, "Oh, you have no idea how much it means to us, and you have no idea how much oppression we've received on our daily basis, and how hard we fought for equality. And we thank you for standing for us as well." I mean, we didn't intentionally do that, but it was a very moving moment that they invited us to for a couple of drinks. You know, they were respectful and civil, and they say to us how much our efforts meant to them. And then we were actually, what we were doing were actually not just a free hugs event, but it was a sign of solidarity to their causes. And from that moment on, I realized that saying yes to strangers on both sides was actually a very wonderful and powerful thing. You can relate to people's emotions and thoughts, and then you can support people, and then you can learn a lot from them. And the second particular event that I would like to share was how I happened to co-found this organization that later won recognition from the United Nations. That was, the idea of it flashed to my mind when I was traveling from China to Europe by ground. It took me 4 months. So I was passing by China and then Pakistan. So this happened actually in the border town of China and Pakistan, which was widely regarded as the roof of the world because I think more than half of the world's tallest mountains are situated around there. And this is a group of kids actually playing, I think it was 9 ball at the time. So I was walking past there, after a few long days of traveling, I was on a 48-hour stretch before that. So the first thing I did was, of course, I wanted to go to rest. I had a hostel booked there. But then these kids just stopped me on the streets because they were wondering why I dressed like how I was, which was, as you remember from the slide just now, I don't actually have the best of fashion sense when it comes to clothing textures. So they were wondering like what I was doing there, because this is a town that usually only Chinese traders and Pakistani traders meet so that they can exchange goods, they can do trades there. But it's a very unorthodox and very strange travel destination for people there. But I happened to design a road that had to pass through there. So I was sitting there, and then I was walking past there, and then they stopped me. And then these little kids, they actually belong to a minority in China. They are Kajik people, and there's about 1 million of them, and they are considered as the only white people in China, by definition. And they invited me for, a game of 9 ball with them. And I was like, why? I was very tired. I was literally there, and I just wanted to go to rest. And then they stopped me and say, "Hey, just join us. You look funny, you look weird, so maybe we can do something together." And you know what? I say yes, because I thought, okay, I'm just going to be here for 2 days, and it was probably snowing on the other side, which is why I was stuck there for a couple of days. Let's do it. And it happened to be where I found my inspiration for my initiative for sports facilities. They actually invited me to play, like 9 ball, and I was asking them, okay, why is it in the public? Is it because you actually own it? They're like, no, this is actually a public property. I was like, oh, so the government bought this pool table for you to just have fun. And they were like, no, this is what we did when we crowdfunded, because in our village there was not much entertainment. The infrastructure was limited, so they had to actually, in many ways, get close to each other. They had to actually communicate with strangers and work with them together for common causes. When there was a problem with the village infrastructure, it wasn't the government that helped solve it. It was their own initiative. It was their own cooperation. So this pool table was actually one of them. So at the time I realized that, okay, so I had a lot of weird questions when I coming from a city area, growing up in Malaysia. I was like, oh, so you are not afraid that people stole this table from you in the evening because they just kept it out in the evening. So this is a very typical Malaysian mindset, I know. And then they'll be like, no, actually, this is because we know everyone in the village and we crowdfunded together. So there is, we had trust for each other. And then, you know what, it's been like this for 1 year and no one stole it, no one even damaged it remotely. So I was pretty moved at the time and I thought, okay, this is such an interesting concept. What if we apply the same concept in our rural communities or even our urban areas back in Malaysia in a pinpoint of the sports industry, primarily because I'm always looking for sports to do when I'm traveling, and I'm also a tech enthusiast myself. So I realized that, okay, why not? And I googled it online to see if there's any crowdfunding platform existing for this kind of situation. And to my surprise, there's none. There's crowdfunding facility for, there's crowdfunding platform for athletes, for even a sports club, but there's none for the pain point that is really damaging the sports ecosystem of developing countries, which is the sports facilities. Because why? Everyone expects the government to do it. So when the government said they don't do it, when there's economic recession, of course the funding cut will start from sports instead of health, which makes sense. So I thought maybe we can do something about it. And when I got back to Malaysia after the 4-month trip, I wrote a letter to the United Nations. I applied for a UNESCO program about sports leaders and entrepreneurs. And I got in and I did a TEDx style presentation in front of a Filipino sports minister. And he actually thought the idea was quite feasible, especially in developing countries where the government initiative is seriously lacking in a lot of areas. So there we go. And then it turned out that this very moment that I talked to strangers who I said yes to their requests, that actually transformed my life from being very lost about what I should do in life to being a sports entrepreneur now and work with the United Nations and have the capacity to reshape sports and its use for many young people in the region. So that is actually one of the very interesting highlights from my moments of meeting strangers, taking an unorthodox decision. So the third event happened quite recently. It was with this guy. His name is Carlos from Portugal. So I met him from a travel platform. I think it was 4 years ago. So we were writing to each other, and to my surprise, after 3 days of us texting each other, he actually asked me if I would massage him. Yeah. So I was a bit taken aback by that. I was like, "Why did you do that? Are you like LGBTQ?" And he was like, "Oh no." And he asked me, "Am I?" I was like, "No." And then he turned out that he was a genuine guy. He was very nice. He was very friendly. And then, but after 4 days, when we talked, and then I realized that okay, this guy is acting a bit strange. How he acted to me was very much outside my comfort zone, and I would just ignore him. And even though he messaged me a few times per week, but I ignored him most of the time because I had better things to do in life. It was until two months ago that he told me that, hey, I'm coming to Bangkok to travel in Thailand. Since I rejected his very kind request to even pay my flight ticket to go to Portugal to see him, which I thought it was a bit weird. So it was like, okay, and then I was like, and then I was deciding against myself, I shouldn't do it because it doesn't make sense at all. I was like, okay, you come to Penang, which is my comfort zone, and we can meet. And he told me that no, he can't because he only had 9 days. So what I realized and reflected on it would be, after the 4 years that we've talked, he has asked for my post address, he wanted to send a postcards. He wished me basically every festive season. So I thought that was very nice of him. So I decided to transit. And then I looked at the flight tickets going to Bangkok. It was 130 ringgit. So I was like, okay, let's do it. I have a few friends in Bangkok as well. So I minimized the race. I'm going to meet many of them, but I'm going to meet this guy for maybe 1 or 2 days for coffee. And it ended up that the first day I moved there, and then I stayed at a different hostel. And what happened was that after he knew that, okay, even if our hostel was only 5 minutes away from each other by foot, he shifted to the hostel. So I thought that was a bit weird to me. It was like, why would you do that? You already paid for it. And before that, I already knew that we had some language barriers because I only understand at best 20% of what he said. No, 80% of what he said, sorry. I didn't understand 20% of what he said. And then it was all very weird to me. And then we started hanging out. So I tried to include other people from hostel as well to not make it as weird. And then he ended up that he asked me the question again, hey, where can I find massage, or can you massage me? I was like, no, if you want to find massage, you know, it's pretty easy to do in Thailand, so, and I think they can massage better than me as well. And then he was like, okay, so do you mind if I massage you then? I was like, no, because this is not what I'm coming for. I'm coming here to see if you're actually that way. So I told him straight in the face. And he wasn't discouraged by that, to my surprise. But he was very respectful of my decision. He was very civil. He understands no, so that was good. And then we ended up doing some day trips together. We took 2-hour boats from Bangkok to a town in the middle of nowhere. We got lost there. We explored things with both our language barriers in Thailand. And then he turned out to be a guy who was actually pretty much up for every adventure I had in mind. So these companies are usually very hard to find when you're traveling because everyone has his or her priorities. So you may want to go to his temple, but the other person don't. But he was very fine with my proposals. He said to me that I come here for a different experience, and I talked to you, and I decided I invited you to come here because after 4 years you still haven't blocked me on social media. And I thought he has a point. I'm wondering myself why I haven't blocked him yet. And then it turned out that we had a lot of fun on a road trip. And then it turns out that, contrary to my belief that he was an old, single, white male, he actually is a happily married man with 4 children. And then, I started opening up myself to him, and then, and then telling him a bit more about my life. And then, we even had some pretty funny stunts together on the boat. We basically talk about each other's life. And he invited me for Christmas in Portugal anytime I want with his family and his children. So it can't be that weird after, or it can't be that bad. And I think, yes, because of my openness to this particular event life, now I have a host in Portugal. Now I get to experience a very authentic Portuguese Christmas and Portuguese culture from his perspective. And I got to know a lot of things about Portugal from him. And this reminds me of what traveling is all about in our life. It's all about moving towards the prejudices that we initially place on ourselves and on other people. And this is why I think when we do have an intuition whether we should do something, whether it should be someone, the chances are you will regret for not doing something that follows your heart than doing something that what your rational thinking tells you. I think Albert Einstein himself, he is very sharp in this observation. He said that intuition is a sacred gift, and rational thinking is a faithful servant. And unfortunately, our society often rewards the faithful servants more. When being more of an intuitive person, which we know we can minimize the risk, and we should, and doing something different is definitely miles better than sitting here in the room doing nothing ordinary, and to keep expecting things to be different is complete insanity when we keep doing the same thing. Thank you.
Round of applause to Mr. Chee.